Hello, and welcome to Release Readiness Live. I'm Elna Miller, your Release Readiness champion. We are broadcasting from our home studios this week as we bring you some of the new features from the Summer 20 release. After our product managers give the highlights, we'll take some of your questions live and on the air. So we will be monitoring both the Release Readiness Trailblazers community as well as Twitter. So if you do have a question, please post it in one of those places. Use the hashtag Salesforce Live. And if you can ask the question earlier in the webcast, that would be really helpful. If we don't get your question live and on the air, don't worry. We will follow up with you within the next few days. All of our webcasts will be available for later viewing on the Salesforce Live website. Now, we may be talking about the roadmap or making some forward-looking statements. So please make sure that any purchasing decisions you make are based on currently available functionality. Now let's get started with Field Service Lightning and meet our product managers.
Hi, I'm Young. We've got lots to show you today. I will be introducing the features for the asset pillar. So let's jump in.
In summer 2020, we're piloting advanced recurrence support for maintenance and GAing asset uptime tracking. On our roadmap, we plan to expand support for preventative maintenance and introduce a number of key improvements to our data models, from warranty to serial number and lot batch to entitlement, which will enable us and our App Exchange partners to build new features on top of them. The advanced recurrence feature simplifies how contract managers set up maintenance schedules to exactly match their customers' requirements with more granularity and flexibility. They can define service schedules using multiple Google Calendar style recurrence patterns. For example, every other Friday or on the first day of the month every 6th month. Let me demonstrate this. As a contract manager for IVAC, I'm defining maintenance schedules for HVAC systems for Ohana Inc. Here's a maintenance plan starting on June 1st, and I just created a maintenance asset under the maintenance plan. I'm going to define a quarterly major HVAC maintenance work rule. The work type will be major HVAC maintenance. Using FSL's advanced recurrence features, I can now define Google Calendar style maintenance schedules on my asset. Here, I'm using a user interface built with Flow to enter the recurrence patterns. I can define yearly, monthly, weekly, daily schedule. For example, every 3 months, or for yearly and monthly, I can specify first day of the month or any other day, or last Friday of a month, or any other position. For weekly, I can select not only every other week, I can also select multiple weekdays. For the major maintenance, it would take place every 3 months on the first day of the month. For the minor maintenance, I click on New Work Rule, enter the title, and select Minor HVAC Maintenance for work type. Since the major maintenance is a superset of the minor maintenance, I'm assigning the minor maintenance a lower priority or higher sort order. This means that when the two overlap, only the high priority major maintenance work order will be generated. The recurrence pattern will be every month on the first day of the month. Now we have created 2 maintenance work rules, one for quarterly major maintenance with sort order 1, and one for monthly minor maintenance with sort order 2. Let's generate the work orders manually to see the results. We see that the work orders generated on the related list. Let's expand that. We see that major HVAC maintenance work orders on June 1st, September 1st, and December 1st. and a minor HVAC maintenance on the months in between, skipping the date when there is a major maintenance. Now for my turbine, I need to both replace battery every year and replace filter every 6 months. I've created another maintenance plan with a turbine asset in it. I've set the two maintenance work rules with same priority so that work orders for both are generated, even if the dates overlap. For the generated work orders, I see that on June 1st, we have both replace filter and battery replacement, and an additional filter replacement in December, 6 months later. In summary, using advanced recurrence, you can define multiple granular calendar-style recurrence patterns for work orders. And using sort order, you can set up parallel or dependent service schedules. The Asset Uptime feature enables asset managers monitor the reliability and availability of each asset by tracking planned and unplanned downtime. As a result, they can easily identify problematic assets and products for remediation. They can improve customer satisfaction by sharing with customers these metrics about their assets. These metrics also help service agents and technicians to be more effective when they respond to a customer call or perform remote diagnostics. Let's see it in action. My colleague has just put our maintenance plan in operation. As an asset manager at IVAC, it is important that I monitor the uptime of our assets. The Asset Uptime Tracking feature calculates asset availability and reliability by tracking planned and unplanned downtime during a period. I want to begin tracking uptime for a turbine on January 1st, 2020 by setting its uptime record start date. Business can choose the date based on their use case, such as purchase date or installation date, and use a process builder to copy the date into this field. Initially, the availability and reliability is 100%. I will create a downtime period by going to the related list and creating an asset downtime period. Downtime can be planned, such as a maintenance task, or unplanned, such as a repair. I select planned and enter a start date of February 1st and an end date of February 2nd for 24 hours. As a result, I see that there is a cumulative downtime of 24 hours, which affects the availability percent, but doesn't affect the reliability percent. This is because availability factors in both planned and unplanned downtime, while reliability factors in unplanned downtime only. You can create a downtime period manually or automatically. For example, by triggering a lightning flow based on a platform event sent from an IoT device. I will create a new unplanned downtime, and it lasts from May 1st to May 4th. Let's go back to the asset details. Now, 72 hours have been added to both cumulative downtime and cumulative unplanned downtime, and both availability and reliability percents have been updated. So far, we have left the average uptime per day as blank, meaning that the asset operates 24 hours a day. However, if this turbine only runs 12 hours a day, we will update this field to 12 hours. Then the uptime percent is lowered for the same amount of downtime. If an asset is out of commission, you can set the uptime record end date, which will fix the calculation in time afterwards. If I want to restart my update calculation, say quarterly, I can do that by setting the record start date to April 1st. It will exclude the downtime in February and include the downtime afterwards. See, my uptime metrics are updated. When we go over to the related list, we see that the February downtime is excluded as the uptime calculation period is checked. Finally, you can get powerful insight by creating a report on product reliability that shows average reliability by product to help identify the least reliable product that requires some corrective actions. While we have many exciting items on the roadmap, I will cover two of them in the interest of time. The first is the beta release of Advanced Recurrence. One of the exciting features is the ability to group under a single work order the work for all the assets that should be serviced together, even if they have multiple recurrent schedules. This improves technicians' productivity when they can service all the assets in one location, and also enables the service provider to include all the tasks under one service report. In addition, we plan to support associating multiple recurrence with a maintenance plan so as to apply them to all assets in the plan to simplify maintenance management. As mentioned, we'll be making a number of key improvements to our data models to enable more automation around asset management. Coming soon will be a native data model to specifically address the need for effective warranty management. Call centers can check for warranty coverage to avoid free services. Manufacturers can use supply warranty to track service cost and bill suppliers accordingly.
We have an extensive roadmap, and I look forward to being back here for Winter 21. With that, I'm going to hand over to Zach for all that's new with resource management and foundation.
First of all, thank you, Young, for a wonderful asset features overview. I'm Zach, based in Tel Aviv, and we're moving on to the resource and foundation pillar. Summer 20 is packed with awesome features, and we've chosen some highlights to share with you. The full list can be found on the field service release notes. First thing we'll talk about is shifts. After the pilot and beta phases, we're announcing shifts as GA in summer. Shift management has some great set of tools and features to help companies manage frequently changing workforce availabilities, such as special call-out duties over weekends and holidays, or managing contractors and freelancers' availabilities, which are very dynamic. With Shift GA, we're delivering some really cool enhancements to complete the shift experience. Multi-day shifts are visually drawn on the shift schedule UI, spanning from start date till the end date. You can also save clicks with shift hover actions, and instead of opening the record, you can quickly edit it from the schedule view. And also, you can add some extra fields to the shift cell layout to quickly show more data at a glance. The expense data model is the first feature of a multi-release effort to eventually have an expense report feature. This will allow resources to easily capture the work-related expenses and attach those to a work order and eventually create an expense report and submit it to approval. In Summer 20, we are releasing the expense object, so you'll be able to capture expenses as a part of a work order or an account. Enhanced optimization, introduced in Summer 19, brought us in-day optimization, scheduling recipes, predicted travel data, and much more. From Summer 20, Enhanced optimization is the default optimization engine for all customers, both new and existing. So everyone will be able to enjoy our latest and greatest when it comes to optimization features. All customers and organizations will automatically move to enhanced optimization with the Summer 20 release. No action is needed. One of my personal favorites is the optimization insights. Optimization insights will help the dispatchers, admins, and business users understand how exactly did the optimization affect the schedule. For example, you'll see how many service appointments were scheduled, how much did we improve travel time per service appointment and also in total, and also what's my workforce capacity and how is it utilized. You're able to view the total numbers for the whole scope of the optimization request or break it down by territories if multiple territories were optimized in the request. This is a great feature that is aimed to help you adopt optimization more easily and become much more successful with it. Last but not least, the much anticipated count rule unlocks many use cases for our customers. Using the count rule, you'll be able to limit the number of assigned service appointments or working time per resource per day to make sure you don't hit regulation or contractual obligations. Count rule could also be leveraged to make sure you don't overload your truck or van with too much equipment or too many items. Now let's see some of our Summit 20 features in action. As an IVEC dispatcher, I have to make sure that all of the maintenance work created by maintenance plan is scheduled on time. In the service list, I would search for maintenance work. I see a corrective maintenance with a due date which is very soon, so I quickly search for candidates. Harry and Alexander are my top resources for this job. But I've also noticed that work weight for corrective maintenance is quite high since lots of equipment is needed. So I've asked my admin to create a count rule that will make sure I don't overload my resources vehicles. My admin goes to the Work Rule tab, clicks New to create a new work rule, and chooses the count rule record type. Then my admin fills out the name and the description of the rule and saves it. Right after saving, my admin uses the count rule lighting component for an easy setup. He chooses count type as custom value, select service appointment for the count object. The custom field work weight is calculating the equipment weight needed for certain types of jobs. Weight limit is the resource property which holds the daily weight limit per each and every resource. The admin also puts 1,000 as the default limit, as most of our vans can hold up to 1,000 kilograms. Then we go to the Scheduling Policies tab and add the rule to our Customer First policy. We go back to the Get and refresh it so the policy changes will take effect. We'll try to schedule the maintenance work now with the count rule in place. We see now that the results are quite different, and there's no way Harry Long, who is our best candidate, can do this job anymore. We also see that we already have some resources exceeding the work weight limit. Moving on to view some of our new shifts enhancements. We can see here our multi-day shifts span across the calendar. We see that Alan Reed wanted to confirm his shift, but the status shows as tentative. We can now easily hover over his shift and add it while on the Shift UI. Also, I know the status color by heart, so I don't need to view it as text. I'd like to go ahead and view the job profile instead. There you have it. Moving on to some future features in our roadmap. Our foundation team will be working on enhancing optimization insights by incorporating health check tests as a new insights component. Health check for optimization insights will help customers understand whether they've had any configuration or data issues which might have impacted the optimization results. The component also suggests recommended actions to help you deal and prevent those issues from happening in the future. That will speed up troubleshooting optimization issues and will provide guidance for admins and implementers so they could be successful with optimization quicker than before. Up till now, service appointments priority was set by its parent record, work order or work order line item. But what if the data I need to calculate the service appointment priority is actually on the service appointment itself? Dynamic priority will introduce service appointment as another object you can use to calculate priority. Dynamic priority will also allow customers with advanced and complex use cases to use a 1 to 100 priority scale instead of the current 1 to 10. For example, the 100 scale could be leveraged by having a formula field that will increase the priority of a service appointment with each day that goes by while approaching the due date. Designated shifts will help planners to make sure that certain types of shifts will be filled only with a certain type of work according to a specific criteria. With designated shifts, you can assign an emergency-only shift for one resource or make sure that during Monday morning, another group of resources will do only installations on a specific product. Shift pattern and templates will help you increase productivity. And instead of manually creating shifts, you'll be able to leverage shift template to quickly define shifts attribute for a certain type of shifts and reuse those templates to quickly create new ones. Then you could apply patterns to automatically mass create shifts based on the type of shifts which are needed and how many should be created per each day of the week. And finally, we'll be adding the mass update shifts feature to the shift schedule UI, so you can update multiple shifts without having to switch to a list view. And that's a wrap on the resource and foundation pillar. We'll be moving on to Kara with the mobile pillar.
Thank you, Zach. Really exciting stuff coming out for the resource and foundation pillars. My name is Kara, and I'll be walking you through the Field Service mobile app. Before getting into what will be released for the Field Service Lightning app, I want to briefly describe the functionality of the Field Service app. Let's get to it. The Field Service app is very different from the core Salesforce app. That application is targeted more for CRM users and CRM use cases. The Field Service app is different in a way that it is architected. We know our end users very well. They don't have a lot of time to use an app that will take a lot of clicks or taps. The Field Service app use cases are tailored for mobile workers or frontline workers who are out and about doing things like installs or service and don't have a lot of time to use an application that will take a lot of clicks and taps. The app is focused on going from service appointment to work order and hopefully closing it out for the service report. Mobile workers want a streamlined experience. Now let's go through what will be released. For summer 2020, we will be rolling out Deeplink Actions and performance enhancements. Coming soon will be timesheets for mobile workers, improved action controls on iOS, data priming control with offline briefcase, extensibility with Lightning Web Components, and lastly, expense tracking. I will now do a deeper dive into a few of these items. Let's get started on Deeplink Actions. This will be a key productivity enhancement for our mobile app users. Mobile users need to get in and out of the app as quickly as possible and avoid typing in information as much as possible. It's easy for everyone to mess up data entry with typos and things like that. Oftentimes, mobile workers are having to use multiple apps specific to their business, all while navigating back into our FSL app. Imagine being out in the field and having to type in duplicate information in two separate apps. Mobile workers are copy and pasting data, even trying to remember information while navigating back and forth between apps, which causes frustration and typos. Our Deeplink feature will solve this issue. Next, I'll talk about our mobile timesheets. Our mobile timesheets will be available in winter 21. Mobile workers will be able to log their working time through a simple and intuitive experience. This will help improve tracking for resource utilization, but also help for payroll calculation. Lastly is our offline briefcase. Our offline briefcase will be a pilot in winter 21. The offline briefcase will allow an admin to select what objects can be primed for offline use, so mobile workers can have the appropriate set of data they need when they're in remote areas or need offline support. Now I'm going to do a demo of our Deeplink feature. As an air conditioning engineer at IVAC, my job can be very chaotic. My number one priority is to satisfy my customers by fixing their air conditioning unit or by doing inspections. It's imperative that I document important information that is critical to the business. I'm currently on site with a customer to do an inspection and needing to input diagnostic information from the air conditioning unit. In order to do that, I need to go into a special app that was built specific to our business. That app is called IVAC. It is designed to interact directly with the air conditioning unit itself and pull vital information from the actual device. With a few clicks within the Field Service mobile app, I'm able to navigate into the IVAC app. Now that I am into the IVAC app, I need to capture the efficiency data from the air conditioning unit itself. By selecting Connect to HVAC, I am able to pull data from the air conditioning unit. As you can see, I was also able to pre-fill some of the service appointment information that was from the Field Service app. I received the efficiency data from the air conditioning unit and captured it within IVAC. Some of this information will need to be saved in the field service app as well. Now I'm going to make sure all the data in IVAC is correct. Looks good to me. It's time for me to close out my job in the field service mobile app. With a few taps, I'm able to launch a flow within the FSL mobile app. That flow is able to grab the data that I already inputted in the IVAC app and places it into the appropriate fields within the field service mobile app. I no longer have to remember the values, which used to lead to typos and errors. This makes me more efficient and more accurate. Hopefully you enjoyed the demo on deep links and actions. One question you may have is, how do I actually build this? Behind the IVAC app is a URL schema. The schema might seem like a jumbled mess, so I will break down the URL to help explain how you can take advantage of the deep link feature. The first part of the URL schema is basically stating what app should be launched from the IVAC app. In this case, it's our FSL mobile app. The next part of the schema is the object that we want to interact with, which in this case is the service appointment. After that, we want to initiate a flow. The screenshot shows an example of a flow that was already created. Within the deep link is an SA input, which is the record ID of the service appointment. After that is the SN number, which is the air conditioning serial number. In this example, the custom field lives on the service appointment. The inspection date is the date input in the URL schema. In this example, this custom field lives on the service appointment. And last but not least is the efficiency input. Again, in this example, it's a custom field that lives on the service appointment. Hopefully this helps break down how the IVAC app is able to work with the FSL app by passing information using our deep link functionality. I hope you enjoyed learning about our field service mobile app. Now I will hand it over to Eric to discuss shift management as part of work.com.
Thanks, Kara. Hi, everyone. I'm Eric Jacobson. I lead product management for field service here at Salesforce, and I'm thrilled to be with you today. We're going to be taking a look at work.com shift management, an entirely new application. So let's jump in and take a look. Work.com shift management is a new application for an unprecedented time. Just over 3 months ago, we all left the workplace. We turned out the lights, walked out the door, and went to work from home due to the COVID-19 pandemic. At the time, we did not know when we'd be coming back to the workplace. We also didn't know what the conditions would be like. In this time period, however, we've learned a lot about what it's going to mean to come back to work. And our field service team at Salesforce has been hard at work thinking about how we can bring people safely back to the workplace. To do so, we created the brand new Work.com shift management application built on top of technology from Field Service Lightning. And that's what I wanted to share with you today. We've looked at how we tackle the problems of bringing people safely back to the workplace, a problem the world really has never contemplated before in terms of how do we ensure that employees arrive at appropriate times so that we don't create surges in our lobbies and our elevators? How do we take into account that an employee's availability may be different now in terms of childcare and transportation? How do we ensure that we are safely utilizing our spaces so that we're ensuring social distancing and allowing appropriate time for cleaning? All of these are considerations that did not exist before that we need to take into account with the shift management application. So let's take a look at a little bit of how this is designed. First off, I want to start by thinking about the personas, the people that are involved. Well, as employees, we're all the primary actors. We're the ones who will be coming back into the workplace. So we need to consider that employees need an easy way to specify their availability. On one end, we have us, the employees. On the other end, we have our admins, our trusty Salesforce admins who are going to be responsible for getting the shift management application set up and running. We'll talk about some considerations for that in just a few minutes. And then in the middle are the other two personas that we probably haven't thought about before. First off is the workplace manager. This is their facilities manager, the person who is responsible for the building, and now has some additional responsibilities considering the capacity and utilization of the building. So, for example, at any given time, in order to comply with local or regional rules and requirements, they may need to adjust the available space within a building to ensure that they are meeting the requirements for social distancing. And then last, but certainly not least, is a role that didn't even exist prior to this scenario, and that is the role of the shift planner. This is somebody whose likely day job is to be a team manager or a leader, and now they have an added responsibility of planning which of their employees should be coming back into the office on a given day. And the reason that this matters now is they bring the human factor element to it. They are the ones who are going to be responsible for that additional decision making to ensure that they bring the right people in to support the necessary projects in their office and ensuring the most productivity from their employees. So let's take a look at a little bit of how this works in terms of a data model, in the sense that we've built shift management on top of field service. To begin with, as we think about our workplaces, the buildings and offices, in this case, the buildings would be a hierarchy of territories. So if we take something like Salesforce Tower in San Francisco that has 61 stories, well, each of those floors then becomes a territory. But even that isn't granular enough, because a floor in Salesforce Tower might hold 100 employees. That's too big for a single space planner to really think about all of those employees. So we're going to want to divide that as well. And we'll get into the concept here of child territories representing a team or a workspace within a floor. Lastly, we've got our employees. We will model them as service resources. Their availability, however, is going to vary. So the way that an employee will specify their availability will utilize our shift records in the underlying data model. So just like Zach had previously introduced us to the GA of shift management for field service, shift management for work.com is using that exact same data model to handle the availability of employees coming into the office. Slightly different use cases, same data model. Now, those shifts are then going to be matched up with the availability, the capacity that the building has. And it's this matching of supply and demand that will result in a set of service appointments, essentially a confirmation that a given employee should be coming into the office on a given day. If we think about this in the context of the jobs that need to be done, and again, those personas, we first start with our employees. They're going to need to specify their availability. This will be done via a lightweight mobile experience, which you'll see in just a minute. Our workplace manager is going to configure the capacity of the building. They are going to set up the spaces and all of the additional factors that are necessary to bring people safely back into these workplaces. Our space planner is going to match these things together. So they're going to be using the dispatch console UI that you know and love from field service in a slightly unique context here to match employees with the available capacity of the building. And then finally, once that capacity has been aligned, we will then send back to the employee a UI that allows them to confirm or reject any of those shifts. Now, let's take a look again at the mobile UI with a little bit more clarity. For our employees, we'll start by being able to present them with an app-level notification, letting them know that there's an opportunity to specify when they can come into the office. They will then be able to configure when they can come in, specifying the start time, but also knowing that it can be overridden for a given day. So for example, if you know that one day you need to drop your kids off at school, and that's going to require you to come in a bit later, you're going to be able to configure your earliest possible start time. And then, after the space planner has gone and matched that up, you'll have confirmed your shifts, and then on the day before arrival, you will receive an arrival pass. You'll notice here, however, that even though you said you could arrive as early as 9 a.m., when you receive that pass, it actually invites you to arrive at the office at 9:15. The reason for this is a process happening behind the scenes that we call arrival staggering. To ensure the appropriate social distancing, arrival times may need to be adjusted slightly on a case-by-case basis to ensure that we're not overloading the capacity of our buildings, lobbies, and elevators. So that's how it comes together for the employee experience. Now let's jump into the product, and we'll take a look at the experience for our facilities planners and our space planners. Here we are inside the shift management experience. To begin with, let's take a look at the shift management application from the perspective of the administrator. An important thing to note is that you're always going to want to use the work.com shift management application in a separate org from where you run your CRM. This is important because it's necessary for employee privacy considerations, as well as ensuring that there is not overlap between shift management for scheduling employees back to the workplace and field service where you're scheduling employees to go and visit your customers. From the shift management setup screen, we can see a number of key pieces of information. Here we can see opportunities to go in and configure the settings of the application, allowing us to configure the work type, to even ensure that certain background jobs happen, such as scheduling the background notifications to let employees know about the shifts, as well as to collect metrics that will be displayed in the Command Center dashboard. So all of that is available here in Settings. We can also then see our employees and locations that have been configured in the work.com Command Center, and we can bring in that information directly into Shift Management. Then, if we jump over here to the facility plan, we'll now be able to see some more really important information related to our buildings. For example, here I can see the buildings that I might have. For example, I might have an office here in Bellevue, as well as one in Louisville. I want to take a look at an office here in Bellevue, and let's look at it now for the next week. We'll go ahead and we'll show our facility plan. We'll see now that within a building, it's broken up as a series of floors, and then within each of those floors, we can see each of the spaces. We can see the capacity that is available there for that building in terms of its maximum occupancy. In other words, if all things were normal, how much space would we have? Over on the right, we'll see our arrival calculator. This allows us to go and calculate how much capacity should I use in this building. So based on the construction of the building, let's say that it has 3 elevators, but they're fairly small and not very fast. It takes them 4 minutes to get from the lobby to the top floor and back again. So that will calculate and give us an estimate. In this case, it's saying that we can only bring in 9 people every 15 minutes based on those inputs. But what if we were to change those, for example, and say that perhaps the elevators were a little bigger? Instantly, we'll see that we could bring in 18 people every 15 minutes, just as an estimate of the arrival space for social distancing. Now we'll add our facility plan. We can go in and adjust which days we want to plan to bring people into the office. We can set the arrival time, so we can say what time we want people to start coming in at 8 a.m. and plan the staggering to end at 10 o'clock in the morning, basically accounting for when we expect to have surges. And remember, we just showed that we could bring in 18 people every 15 minutes. So I'll pass that information in here as well. We'll go ahead and save. One other piece that we need, though. We need to set the occupancy, the key factor here, saying that in this case, we want to bring people into this building at 50% occupancy. And that will automatically go and say that whereas this building could hold 30, now it's going to allow 15. So it's automatically generating that information, and we'll be able to use that with the Generate Shifts button to go and create the availability for the employees. Speaking of which, if we switch to the persona of our space planner, they're now going to see this experience in the dispatch console of Shift Management. And in case here, within a given territory, remember, our territories represent the areas within floors. What we'll see here is that the white bars for any of our employees will represent their availability. This is what was specified as a shift from the employee mobile app experience. And the yellow bars that you see here are assigned to them. Those are the scheduled service appointments. In other words, the times in which a space in the office has been matched up with an employee who says they're available. As the space planner, you can make adjustments. You can use the console here to adjust and say, for example, that I need Minette to come in on a particular day. So I will move the bar away from Marianne. Essentially, I've reassigned that shift to Minette. And so that is the ability for the space planner to override and make the decisions as necessary to ensure that you have the right people enabling you to get as much work done as possible. And that's just a quick overview of Work.com Shift Management. Okay, we've now just taken a look at Work.com Shift Management for our workplace and space planners. With that, I'm going to hand it back to Elna for some Q&A.
So we're ready to dive into your questions. Now, just as a reminder, you can ask them in the Release Readiness Trailblazers community or in Twitter. Use the hashtag Salesforce Live. And there's still time. If you haven't thought of a question yet, go ahead and pop one in there and we'll keep monitoring it for the rest of the hour here. So let's dive in and start with a question from Powell. How can I sign up to advanced maintenance plans? And when can we expect this to go GA? It's really needed in the industry.
Thanks for the question. I love the excitement. We just started our pilot testing yesterday. So if you're interested in participating, feel free to reach out to me by posting your comment in the community and mention me. And then based on the feedback from the pilot and also our development progress, we will assess the timing for general availability.
Right. So with regards to the count work rule, is there any functionality to offload the service resource, for example, a truck, and then make it available for the next chunk of work? I believe that's not possible now, but are there plans for that?
It's a great question. So it's so true. We are at the moment, the scheduling count rule does not support midday replenishments. But we do have that pickup and drop off scenario planned further ahead in the roadmap.
Right. Okay. So Yun, can you expand on how to use an IoT device with the asset uptime feature?
Sure. The downtime periods will most probably be created via automation from IoT. One thing to note is that both the start and end time need to be filled in, so the automation would have to create a record after the fact or update the end date once the final end date is known.
Right, thank you. And do you have any plans for meter-based or condition-based maintenance?
So meter-based maintenance, that would be examples such as, generate a work order for every 100,000 miles or every 10,000 operating hours. And condition-based maintenance would be something like, generate a work order when temperature exceeds, say, 1,000 degrees. These are both on our roadmap to follow the advanced recurrence feature.
Interesting. So I'll be looking forward to hearing more about that as we go into the future releases. Now, can we control if we generate one work order line item per asset on the maintenance plan as we can now?
In terms of generating one work order line item per asset for the new object maintenance work rule on maintenance asset, that feature is planned for 228.
Okay. Great, thanks. Now, another question from Powell. Powell's really paying close attention. He's posting a lot of great questions, so thank you for those. The mobile timesheets, are they a beta now or a pilot? And how can this be enabled in the org if it's available now?
Yeah, great question. So it's available now through beta, and you can do that through self-service.
So that would mean it's somewhere in the setup?
Yeah, go ahead and post in communities and mention me, and then I can go ahead and walk you through that.
Perfect. Great. Thanks. And then he loved the demo on the Deeplink and is asking, is the format the same for both iOS and Android, or is it different?
Yes, it's the same. And same thing, you can go ahead and go on beta, go on the Google Play Store or the iOS Apple Store, and you can go ahead and test that for both Android and iOS.
Perfect. So this
I think that's a,
oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I just want to chime in for a quick sec. That's a great call out. Just in general, we want to just ask everybody that they really take advantage of the preview of our mobile app. So as Kara said, it's available from the Play Store or from Test Flight for iOS. And it's a really important way as part of the release to really get a chance to validate your business's use case with the new functionality that will be coming for the summer release.
Great. And can you, so is this a completely new mobile app, or is it an upgrade to an existing?
Yeah, good question. It's the same app that's being used, just with an update, so you can take advantage of the Deeplink feature.
Great. And this is, I think, for Zach. Can you explain how to activate optimization insights?
Sure. Basically, all you have to do is go to the FSL settings page in the Manage package. in the optimization section, you'll have a way to just a Boolean to activate the feature. Then you would go ahead and open the optimization request Lightning page, and you'll have your optimization insights Lightning web components on the left of the toolbar. And all you have to do is just drag and drop them anywhere in the optimization request page. Save the page, and voila.
Got it. Question just came in from Kurt. Are there any plans to port the awesome shift management tools to the nonprofit Volunteers for Salesforce, which could use a refresh? He says, especially during COVID-19, we must take care of our most vulnerable members of society, which means taking care of those that volunteer their time to nonprofits as well.
Well, certainly you can use field service in nonprofit use cases for a variety of scenarios around scheduling visits to people that are in vulnerable situations. That's absolutely a valid use case for our field service product. As far as directly integrating the shift management and field service functionality into one of the volunteer apps from Salesforce.org, that's not an immediate plan for us.
Okay, gotcha. Again, for Zach, is there any limit on how many count rules could be added to a scheduling policy?
So it's an awesome question. So it depends on the count type that you're using. If you're counting assignments or counting duration, so basically there's no limit, but you can use relevance groups and then count differently per different group of resources. If you're counting custom values, so you can use up to 4 custom values counting instances in a policy. And then, for example, there could be a scenario where your truck or van have different compartments and you carry different liquids perhaps. So that way you can model it with multiple count rules.
Gotcha. Now, can we talk a little bit about how field workers might be able to capture their expenses using the FSL mobile app?
So at the moment, the expense object is available through the work order related list, both in desktop and in the mobile app. We do have plans to build a dedicated expense report UI down the road.
Nice. That could be really useful. And then how are offline activities queued and then sent to the server when connectivity is restored?
Yeah, good question. So offline actions are queued up, and then if the action is blocked, the queue stops and the user will get a warning message that the error needs fixing. So the queue does not skip the object blocking it because the subsequent actions might be dependent.
Gotcha. So speaking of deep links, can we use those today?
Yeah. So like I said before, go ahead and go on Google Play or iOS App Store and get the beta version of the FSL app. And then yes, you can take advantage of our deep link feature.
Great. And also on deep link, which parameter types are supported?
Yeah, so we have a few, which is great. The URL encoded text parameters, numbers or currencies, Boolean values, for example, like true or false, and then date and time parameters.
I'm wondering if you could give a couple of sort of like real world examples of how you might use deep links, maybe a couple that you've showed in the past or maybe weren't in the demo.
Yeah, so a lot of times our customers or users will have to use an app that's specific to their business use case. So for an example, like in the demo, it was an air conditioning unit that this app specifically worked with the air conditioning unit. So getting things like the air conditioning serial number, like the exact information from that unit, and then being able to pass that information into the FSL app using our deep links just really helps eliminate kind of duplicate information or duplicate data entry. So a lot of times, there's specific apps for whatever industry is out there. So really eliminating kind of that duplicate data entry using our deep links and kind of passing information from one app to another will just help that end user just be more efficient out in the field.
Nice, thanks for that. Now, regarding work rules, how can that be enabled in an org? Consecutive work rules.
So those are actually, those were already added in Spring 20 and are already basically in your org. There's no activation needed to use the consecutive work rule.
Gotcha. Erica asked, would you have any insights on the roadmap for the Shift Expert functionality? That was part of the, okay, that's part of the Click acquisition. So I think we may have to follow up with you in the community on that one because that's not really related to our content today. So Erica will get back to you on that one. And Powell wanted to know, what's the outlook for integrating maps with Field Service Lightning?
We have some ideas on how to leverage Salesforce maps into the Field Service Lightning dispatcher console or perhaps even new capabilities. Again, that'll be down the road, and we have plenty of future plans to do that.
Okay. A couple of people have already said they want to participate in the beta testing for advanced maintenance plans. So great, thank you for timing in there. And that's in the community, Young, so you'll be able to see those requests. Claudia was asking, when can we expect more possibilities to customize and adapt the UI in the FSL app to make the usage easier and more intuitive?
Yeah, so good question. I know that that's something that we've been discussing and kind of working towards a good strategy for how to make it a little bit more customizable. It's all kind of on the roadmap. We don't have a specific date, but it is something that we are keeping in mind.
Great. Okay, one more question about shift management. How is that different from field service?
Okay, so great question, Elna. And community. So let me talk a little bit about the work.com shift management versus the FSL shift capabilities that Zach showed us. And fundamentally, I think it's about thinking about who you're scheduling and for what purpose. So work.com is all about bringing your employees back to their offices. So that's really what it's fundamentally about there. And then separately, as we all know, field service is about scheduling your employees to go out and visit your customers. So I think that's the fundamental split between those two.
Got it. Now, speaking of work.com and COVID, would you say work.com is really just for COVID and managing the reopening, or are there other use cases?
No, I don't think that work.com is a product just for recovering from COVID. I think that really what we're going to see is that the current COVID pandemic really shone a light on a gap in a lot of businesses' ability to prepare for business continuity. And so what we'll see is that this becomes an ongoing part of a business continuity toolkit that helps us to deal with anything that will come up in the future. Let's hope that they're not global pandemics, but certainly there are local, regional, national types of events that can require us to make adjustments to our workplaces. It could be something as simple as a power outage. It could be a weather disaster. It could be other types of events that require us to be able to have the adaptability of our workplaces and our workforces.
So you could think of it as more of a preparedness tool as opposed to now it's really reactive. Like now it's like the thing has happened and now we have to figure out how to move forward, as opposed to in the future, maybe we're just preparing for something that might happen and then we're kind of all set. You know, at least we're able to start continuity up again faster if we already have a plan in place and
exactly,
right,
you know,
right.
Exactly. As Mark Benioff puts it well, this is his first pandemic. For all of us, it's our first pandemic, and so we're learning a lot. And I think that businesses around the globe will be better prepared for the future. We will actually have playbooks that we can use for these types of scenarios and be better prepared. Whether, like I said, whether it's something that's, you know, global, let's hope not, but that could be even at a, you know, a local or regional scale where you need to be able to make those adjustments and you're ready to go. You're not having to invent new processes. You actually have something that's been proven and practiced.
So, you know, I've heard the term emergency preparedness a lot, you know, where, like, for example, there are organizations that specialize in emergency preparedness. And would you say that business continuity preparedness and emergency preparedness kind of go hand in hand? Are there some aspects of work.com that are more suited towards emergency preparedness as opposed to the continuity aspect?
I think there are different aspects for sure. I think part of it depends on the audience of it. Certainly, as we think about businesses, you definitely think a lot about business continuity. As you think about the public sector, you think a lot about emergency preparedness. But there's going to be intersections for those as well. Public and private definitely overlap when you start talking about venues or events of large scale. So if you're managing stadiums, well, that's not a public place. It is a private venue. It's effectively a public place when you start having that scale of visitor to it. So any and all of those, I think, are viable factors there.
Great, thanks for those insights. So I got another question that just came in from Kurt. He's asking, can work.com be used to schedule external community members as well as internal employees?
So for our initial launch of work.com, it's designed for scheduling badged employees. And what I mean by that is that they may not necessarily be full-time employees, but if you think about it, if they have a badge to access the office, that probably falls into scope. So for example, if it's a full-time contractor that would be scheduled in there, you could use the work.com application for it as well. We have a partner that is building a application that integrates with work.com for visitor management. So that's one piece there. And then longer term, we'll think about some of the other aspects of how we might take some of those other scheduling considerations into play.
I think the angle that Kurt might be going for is something like a volunteer, for example, that might be coming on site, who may or may not have a badge, I guess, depending on the you know, how you manage your visitors or volunteers. They're not technically paid employees, but they might be, right?
Yep, it's certainly a great idea, Kurt. It's something for us to think about. There is a volunteer management app that is going to be coming as part of the broader work.com offering. But then in terms of actually integrating that from a scheduling perspective is an interesting one to think about there. So stay tuned. There's a lot more to come on work.com, including even a whole release readiness live session you can check out about.
That's right. Later this week, we got another session. I think it's Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so we'll learn a lot more about it and we'll welcome more of your questions about it then. So at this time, we're going to wrap up for today, but definitely come back and join us tomorrow. We got 2 more sessions and you'll see the schedule posted in the Release Readiness Trailblazers community with the links to join. And of course, we'll welcome your questions and we'll see you out there in the community where all Trailblazers meet to be release ready.